Hey guys, Corey Scott here. I want to talk about something that I think this may be the biggest mistake that people make when dealing with law enforcement. And here it is. Almost in every investigation, there comes a time to where the police will say, you know what, Mr. So-and-so, we can't help you unless we know your side of the story. And they'll go on about how they know this and they know that and how the other person in the other room said this about you. And some of it or none of it may be true. But they'll say it. And they'll say that the only way that we can help you is we need to hear your side of the story. And many people are sitting behind bars right now as I speak because they took them up on that proposition and they quote unquote told their side of the story. Here's the problem with that. It sounds like, oh, okay, they just want to hear what I got to say. But what you have to understand is in a criminal proceeding, in a case, your story is really all that you have. I'm going to say that again. Your story is all that you have. If you give them your story, your side of the story, you might as well just give them your life and your liberty right there. You might as well be saying, Mr. Officer, Mrs. Officer, I am willing to put my whole life and my liberty into your hands. Why do I say that? Well, let me explain. When you talk about a trial, a case, really what we're talking about is we're talking about two stories. A trial is nothing but a competition between two stories as to which one prevails. The state has to prove their story beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, you don't technically have to do anything on your side. You don't have to really tell a story. But even if you don't get up there and tell a story, your attorney, in their advocating for you and cross-examining the witnesses, they're in fact telling a different side of the story. They're in fact turning the other side of the coin. They're in fact trying to pull the covers off of what the state is trying to prove against you. And that becomes your side of the story. But here's the problem with giving them your side of the story. If you give them that, you also give them license to do what with it? To change it, to exaggerate things, to delete things from it. And what you also do is you put yourself in a position to where if they change your story, they mess up your story, they intentionally exaggerate with your story, you can be put in a position that although technically you have the Fifth Amendment, the right against self-incrimination, you could sort of put yourself in a hole to where you have to now straighten out the story that you gave them because they messed it up. And now you may be the only person to clear it up. That's the problem. What you want to do with your story is this. You want to protect your story with everything that you have. You want to sit down with your attorney who has your best interests at heart, who's advocating for your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, who has to act in your best interest. And you want to tell that person your story because that person can then listen to your story, question you about your story, and figure out how your story can best serve you and to prevent your story from ever being used against you. Your story is everything. I heard a quote one time that said, when you're talking about the story of your life, you never ever put the pen in another person's hand. You want to make sure that you have that pen to write your story. And it's the same thing in every criminal case. You want to make sure when it comes to your story, if it's ever going to see the light of day, if it's ever going to be told to a judge or jury, that it's told from your perspective, by your counsel. You don't want the state to tell your story because the state is trying to put you behind bars. The state is trying to take your freedom. The state is trying to separate you from your kids, your wife, your husband, your loved ones, your dream, your destiny. When it comes to your story, you better always bet on yourself. Never ever give your story away, because if you give your story away, you give your case away. And if you give your case away, you're literally giving your life and your liberty away. I hope that this has been helpful. If you're listening to me, I know that it has been helpful. Please, 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 ma'am, sir, share this with someone. Post it on Facebook. Post it everywhere, okay? Because somebody needs to hear it. And if you have any questions for me, please let me know. If I can be of any further help, email me, call me, text me. I'd be more than happy to help. But remember this. If you have to be found guilty of anything, be guilty of greatness. And remember, when it comes to your story, you hold that pen and you always bet on yourself. Take great care.